Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at this live JetPatch webinar. My name is Danny Miller. I'm JetPatch CMO, and I'll be your host for today. Our featured speakers are Shai Torin, JetPatch CEO, and Todd Kirkland, our Director of Customer Success. In today's session, we will cover some of COVID-19 trends and their implication on all of us, security and IT professionals. We will discuss the complexity surrounding patch management and highlight some of the common practices and how they can be improved in order to transform how organizations are addressing vulnerability remediation. And as promised, we will showcase a product demo and take the time at the end to respond to any questions. So before we begin, a couple of housekeeping points. All audio is muted. To enter your questions, simply use the Q&A button at the bottom of the page. I will address the speakers with as many questions as time permits during this Q&A session. So without further ado, I would like to hand this over to Shai, JetPatch CEO. Shai, please go ahead.
Thank you, Danny, and thank you all for taking the time to join us today. I would like, during this talk, to share with you what I've learned during the last 2 months with regards to the implication of COVID-19 and how should different companies deal with that. So I would like to start with something that I think is clear to each and every one of us. We feel that in our daily life, both our families, ourselves, at home and at work, it's clear that most, if not all of us, all the employees are now working from home. And this is something which is actually becoming the new de facto reality. A week ago, Google and Twitter announced that their entire workforce will continue to work from home until January 2021. So we need to understand that we are now in a new reality, and this requires us to act differently. I see here in the audience people from different groups. I see some SecOps, and I see some IT directors and some CISOs here, and I'm sure that if I would ask each and every one of you, how are you handling, how have you handled 3 or 4 months ago the number of tasks, you would have told me that you have way too many tasks than you can handle. And this only became worse. And as a result of that, the cyber hygiene is a great concern. It's a great concern, as according to every research that was published recently, we have not yet to see the implication of COVID-19. This is something that we will start seeing in the next 2 months. So you are actually, next slide please, Danny. You are actually part of what we call the perfect IT storm. About 2 months ago, management decided that business need to go on. And as a result of that, it practically took all the IT restrictions that you had in place 3-4 months ago and pushed it aside. 3-4 months ago, you would not allow anyone to connect to the network from an unapproved device. You would not allow anyone to use his or her home computer in order to connect to the network and do the work. And you would definitely not allow anyone to use the device for non-work purposes. All these restrictions are not relevant anymore, not because they're not correct, it's because practically we are in a new reality. IT are experiencing now networks that are expanding. They're experiencing more complex threat landscape. including many unmanaged devices. The environment that you're managing took a new form. Insecure remote connections are all of a sudden happening. The easiest way to identify that, and this is something that we are measuring when we are talking with customers, is the number of tickets that IT is addressing now because of this expansion. And the result is that there is a risk exposure, jumped to the roof. So the question here is, what do you do? And I'm sure that if I would ask each and every one of you, you can describe to me exactly what prevention steps are you taking, whether it would be a secured web gateway or anything else. And in addition to that, you can describe to me the protection measure that you have in place, whether it's an antivirus or a new generation endpoint protection, and the same goes for sanitization. But you need to keep in mind that if you continue to do more of the same, it will not protect you from the implication of what we've experienced in the last 2 months. So we need to do something different. There is a new reality and we need to do something different. If we look at the data, that we see that almost 100% of the vulnerability exploited by the end of this year will continue to be one known by the security and IT professionals. Think about that. That's horrible. It means that we have something which we are aware of, and at the same time, more than a third of the companies in the US, and then the data in the rest of the world is given worth, have experienced a data breach. A data breach which over 70% of these are because of a vulnerability that already have a solution in place. And in order to understand why is this happening and what should we do differently in this new reality, we need to analyze what's going on. And I wanted to put it very, very simply in front of you. People can talk with you about the fact that there are new vulnerabilities and that the hackers are more sophisticated, and that there are, you need to put prioritization in place, and everything is absolutely right. But if you want to put your focus on the most important thing that you need to change, it's the time to remediate. Because of the data we've just seen, the time to remediate is the #1 factor which put you in risk. And because the risk has just grown because of COVID and its implication, you need to focus on that. How do I minimize the time to remediate? That is average in the industry is between 3 to 4 months in order to remediate the entire environment. How do I minimize that? So let me share with you what we have learned from the hundreds of customers that we are talking with and learn. So the first reason for this long time to remediate, if you analyze the way that the enterprise work, you see that you have different teams that are responsible for different elements of this entire challenge of remediation and patching. You have the security team, which are using vulnerability scanners, but they're not responsible for the remediation. The IT operation are responsible for the remediation, but they are not controlling the application. And the fact that there are so many teams that need to somehow cope with this challenge, causing waste. The interaction between the team is causing a loss of a long time. The second reason is the tools. if you analyze, an average corporate is using between 3 to 4 tools in order to patch the environment, the different data center, the different operating system. The fact that there are so many tools in this versus one tool is a huge cause of time and very, very hard to manage. The third area are the processes. And here I urge you to analyze the process, assess your patching process, and I would dare to say processes, because you would find out that you most probably have between 3 to 4 processes. And when you assess the processes, you find out that there are a lot of manual steps and a lot of scripting, usually based on local scripting expertise. And all these steps are A, a security risk, and B, a major loss of time. But it's not only that. There are 2 additional things that you need to look at. The first is the repetition. Zoom out. Look at the way you're handling the patching. Count the number of cycles that you are doing and the number of times that you need to repeat a cycle until the entire environment is patched and in compliance. The fact is that almost all the enterprises are in a Sisypheal, repeatable, endless cycle of patching. Yes, there is progress in each cycle, but the fact that you need to repeat it over and over again, and you cannot patch outside of the maintenance window, again, cause every repeat you lose another week or another 2 weeks. And the last and maybe most important thing is the fact that almost all companies are working in a reactive mode. Working in a reactive mode, meaning that you are running a cycle, you are generating reports, and then you are reacting to the failures that you've seen in the report. Versus learn from your mistakes, learn from the reasons that are causing failures, and be proactive and take the necessary steps in order not to do the same mistake again. In order to do that, you either need to learn and collect the data yourself, or you need a system that can learn for you. In order to do that, you need to see what is going on in real time so you can proactively take the steps in order to make the changes within the cycle and not post the cycle. In order to do that, you need to have all the system integrated, and you need to have hyper-automation. Now, please pay attention here. The fact, I'm sure, 100% sure, that if I would talk with each and every one of you and I would ask you, hey guys, do you have automation? Some of you will say, I have full automation. Some of you will say, yeah, we have automation, but not everything is automated. Keep in mind, I'm talking about hyper-automation. Hyper-automation and optimization means that you are not allowing any step to be manual. You're not allowing any interaction between systems to be done manually. So with these insights, I would, before handing over to Todd to show you the actual product, I would like to highlight again what is the most important thing and what are the reasons or the foundations we build JetPatch upon. So being proactive, in order to do that, you will need to learn. You will need to be able to foresee. You will need to be able to predict. So when you will see the demo, please pay attention to the predictive patching and the way it lets you transform from reactive to proactive. You need to be able to have a system that provides you with the best practices and with a governed process. And you need to have hyper automation. With that, I would hand it over back to you, Danny. Thank you all for listening, and I'll be happy to answer questions at the end.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shai, for those insights. So now I would like to ask Todd to share with us information about the JetPatch platform and then take us through a live demo. Take it away, Todd.
Thank you, Danny. So really 3 things I want to highlight about the JetPatch platform. The first is our discovery process. We have the ability to discover a hybrid heterogeneous environment, whether or not you have instances in different kinds of clouds like AWS and Azure, as well as some on-prem instances, such as maybe an Active Directory server, vCenter, etc. We're able to take all those inputs in addition to vulnerability scanner inputs, such as Tenable Nessus, Nexpos, etc., and give you a snapshot of your current patch compliance level across the environment. From there, we're able to run what Shai was talking about, our predictive patching mechanism, which essentially tells you what your current success rate would be if you tried to patch today, as well as provide a list of corrective actions to help you close that gap. And of course, we have an end-to-end governed process, minimizing the time required to remediate those machines and get you to the level of your needs. And with that, let's go into the platform. Great. Let me go ahead and log in. And when you first log into the platform, you're presented with your compliance dashboard, that snapshot I just mentioned a moment ago, telling you exactly what your compliance levels are across the board, as well as giving you the ability to drill down into different groups, operating systems, to figure out even more. Now, how do I get to this point? I mentioned that we take all these different inputs from different discovery sources. And essentially, we're able to add all the ones that you most need. As I mentioned, vCenter, AWS, Azure, Active Directory, and so forth. And then once having all that inputted into the system, give you kind of where you are and also give you the fine control of which groups of machines within those systems you want to manage and patch. Once all that is configured, when you go and you want to drill down at an individual endpoint level or groups of endpoint level, you can see the current compliance level at that kind of granularity. So I can see what's installed, what's yet to be installed. If there's any issues with those patches, see those kinds of failures as well as if I have integration with a vulnerability scanner. In this environment, it's currently with Tenable Nessus. I have that information here as well, indicating how many patches are being matched between that report and our repositories, as well as if any have been installed, which ones are they and which ones are remaining. In addition, you get to drill down at a catalog level, again, having that visibility across the board, across different operating systems, or all different types of Windows and Linux environments, giving you the capability to really see the information that you like, both at the endpoint level and patches level. Also giving the ability to import other reports, such as Rapid7 Nexpos or other vulnerability data reports as well. Now, again, you have all this visibility, very clear, very easy to access and change. The next important step is that predictive patching, right? Actually being able to run the simulation and tell you what you need to address before actually remediating. So let's go ahead and choose the group we're going to work with today, Group A. Run this simulation. Basically, this mechanism is always running in the background. And when you go ahead and you run here, it's generating the reports and indicating to you what your current success rate would be. Right now, it's 40%, as well as the capability of indicating what you need to do in order to improve it. It could be all different types of things. It could be in like machine state information. It could be maybe the machines are turned off, or there's some sort of network issue with them, as well as maybe there's not enough memory on the disk space to install, as well as many other variables. In addition, on the application platform side, indicating to make sure that, let's say in this example, ensuring that you have the scheduled downtime that's appropriate for these machines, right? You don't want any upset application owners. So in this instance, something that I can easily fix, right? Just ensuring that these machines are at the right time. And if I go back and I run the same report again, since that mechanism is always running in the background, it will adjust the report accordingly and tell you that you're now good to go. Now, let's go ahead and run a remediation. So I'm going to take this endpoint and say I want to create a report based off of the Tenable Nessus report. So automatically it's generated that plan, allowing me to click into it at the bottom. And from here, let's just call this plan Hyper Automation Plan. And with this report, it's automatically selecting the relevant patches based off of that endpoint and based off of the plan, as well as giving the appropriate action to install. As well as it identifies the appropriate group that this endpoint is a part of and allows me to understand what also will happen within that group. There's also the ability to select a workflow here, and I'll talk about exactly what that is in just a second. Now I actually go ahead and activated the plan, and we'll all of a sudden start going through this storyboard as it progresses stage by stage. Now let's talk a little bit about that workflow, that end-to-end process. So what is a workflow? It is a series of tasks and scripts that are done before patching occurs, and then the series of tasks after patches are occurred. And with JetPatch, you have the ability to manage these different tasks and scripts, create them to your liking based off of different operating systems, and then build out the correct workflow for your groups according to potentially, example, different application owners. In addition, what's very important for a lot of environments is the change approvers process, or just having some sort of audit log in an appropriate system. We have capability to integrate with tools that you love. I mentioned vulnerability reports, but also ITSMs, such as ServiceNow, Jira, Symphony Summit, and so forth. Let's actually go ahead and take a look at the data that's being exchanged between the two platforms. What's great about this integration with any ITSM, whether it be ServiceNow or the other ones, is the capability of customizing the information exchanged, meeting the needs of your environment. So you have all different types of fields that are being automatically filled out. All this is customizable, what's in the description, short description, other kinds of notes that are appropriate for your workflow. We tie right into whatever that is existing on the ITSM side. In addition, what's very important is having full visibility end to end. One way, a visual way, is what we call a compliance report. The compliance report is indicating to you, where are we with this plan? What % are we on? It kind of gives you these visuals indicators here throughout. You also have the ability to download this report as well to get something if you need something in a non-visual manner. In addition to the visual component of visibility, what's also very important is real-time activities. So here you get a clear view of all tasks, whether it be those pre-patch tasks I mentioned, your during or execute patch installation tasks during, as well as the post tasks after patch installation is complete. So you can actually see from different remediation plans, different activity statuses, you have the ability to really drill down when they started, when they ended, getting information about each successful script, whether it be these patching scripts or even underlining system scripts, as well as, again, ability to actually see that information both here in the system, as well as the ability to export it for more kinds of different types of data analysis. You actually see here that we're actually currently installing the patch that we just executed a moment ago. And what's great about this is, again, while it's going through these execution stages, you're constantly getting this information updated, whether it be, again, at the high level, whether it be at the individual report level, as well as an individual task by task level as well. And you actually can see here, it just successfully ran. And with that, I will hand it back over to Danny.
Okay, this is great. Thanks so much, Todd, for sharing with us a few of the JetPatch platform highlights. I just want to recap. So we saw a system that is able to learn and provide real-time visibility of the overall patching process. We saw hyper-automation remediation plan that interacts with your security ecosystem. And we were able to see governance as well as compliant and dashboard reporting that are so important for all of us. So with that, we've heard today overall about patch management complexity, and we saw some of the JetPatch platform and how we can help transform your organization to be proactive. But before we begin the Q&A, I'd like to leave you with a few insights. The COVID-19 really intensified some of the staffing and manual efforts we had to deal with regards to patching. Doing more with less approach is going to be with us for the foreseeable future. So we need to embrace it, no matter how hard it's going to be. Regarding cyber hygiene, I really can't stress enough how important it is to closely monitor your cyber hygiene and work constantly to improve it. Make sure you have the tools and processes that you need in order to accomplish that. Time to remediation. This is your key metric, as Shai clearly stated. You need to apply those patches quickly and avoid the next breach and become part of the statistics. And last but not least, you need to implement intelligent automation in your environment. That is the only way you can keep up with the sheer volume of the new vulnerabilities and attacks. Before we depart and we switch to a Q&A, I wanted just to encourage you to go to our website and spend 5 minutes and complete the Future of Patch Management survey that is available on the top of the website. You'll find it at the top bar. It would be great if you can take a few minutes to do it. And with that, I'd like to switch to Q&A and see if we have anything that came up in the queue. And in the meantime, while waiting for some of your questions, I'd like to actually ask Shai, what do you hear from your customers these days? I mean, there are a lot of customers approaching us, COVID-19. Can you share with us some of those trends, some of the thoughts that you hear from in those conversations?
Yeah, I think what I hear, the main question that we've been asked is, what should I do different? That's the main thing that customers are asking, because the way we are at an uncertain situation. There is no one really knows what the hackers did during the time that we had to open our networks, and we don't really we cope with a situation where we only know part of the data, and therefore the questions that we have been asked over and over again is, what should we do different? In addition to that, I think that one thing that is of a huge concern to all the customers is how do I patch all my unmanaged devices? The fact that all of a sudden the IT guys are in need to manage devices that were unmanaged devices until now is a major concern to all of them. And usually the systems that they have in place and the system that they are using are not allowing them to do that. And therefore come the question of, how do I manage these unmanaged devices? How do I patch these devices with the systems that I'm currently using?
Okay, great. Thank you for this answer. Another question is that sometimes we hear from customers saying, yeah, we have a lot of manual processes and handshakes, but we manage. We know it takes us a couple of days to prepare. We know we work throughout the weekend, but we manage. What can you tell those customers about the need for automation and how it's going to change and affect how they actually reach their compliance level?
This is actually, I would say, the biggest risk that all companies carry within themselves, because it's a natural human reaction to avoid changes. You have something that is working more or less, and you don't want to change because you know that changes usually bring with them unexpected things, and you say, okay, I'm okay. That's and I have a system. I think there is hardly no customer that we or company that we talked with that didn't have any product in place. And the fact that you think that you manage pushes you to continue with the same route that you took until now. What we usually do in order to help customer and help people understand the risk in this we manage is we share with them the statistics of the industry which I also shared in this talk, showing that 37% of these companies that are managed are being breached. And this is a terrible mistake to believe that you will be part of the 63% that nothing will happen to them. Because statistically, it's a very, very high risk to take. And once people see the statistics, and once they understand that they have almost 40% chances of being breached, and the cost of being breached is huge, it's terrible, then they understand that they need to change something. And then the discussion goes into, okay, so what do I need to change? And there are common things that I hear from a lot of customers, but this is something that I can, of course, share if someone asks that.
Okay, thank you very much, Shai. So I don't see more questions now coming from the Q&A. So I wish to thank you for this time. I hope this has been insightful and informative. We urge you to go and visit us on jetpatch.com and feel free to contact us for any questions, concerns. We'd love to help you out. And have a great day, keep safe, and see you on the next webinar. Bye now.